So good afternoon, Mr. Mariwala. Thank you for joining Express Pharma and Nutrify today for this interview. And we've heard a lot about your work on the nutraceutical sector, and of course, as Executive Chairman and Managing Director, OmniActive Health Technologies. You're also the founder president of the Association of Herbal and Nutraceutical Manufacturers of India. So what is your take on how can India transform into a $1 billion nutraceutical industry, domestic, international, B2C and B2B by 2030? Because that's the whole thrust of the government of India.
So I think there are lots of opportunities. There are various ways we can approach this. Of course, we are struggling a little bit yet with the government in trying to get them to understand what they need to really do in this whole space. I think at the moment, perhaps we are doing it, not necessarily with the government support. We are doing it as an industry, just kind of like the way software industry evolved into this country, and then they kind of figured out how to get the government to understand what software was all about. I think we are facing something similar right now at this moment in our industry, because it's difficult to differentiate what nutraceuticals are from many mainstream products, and they don't, sometimes people don't get it, and I think it's perhaps our incompetence in our communications that we are not able to get them to see the picture. But we are trying our level best to see if we can get them to understand what this industry is about and what it needs to succeed in this industry. The reason why I believe it is very likely that we can get there is because of two or three things that are taking place. One big one, of course, is the geopolitical situation that's changing. Everybody is looking at China plus one now, and China plus one can only mean India, because India is the only other country that has the prowess and the ability to do some things of a scale and at a global level, which I believe we can, and I can believe we can make an impact and difference in the global scale of nutraceutical industry. So that being the case, I think we are going to need to do some careful understanding and curating of products and both for export as well as for import and for the domestic market. I think we can do a lot to create the $100 billion opportunity for India.
Moving on to the second question, what are the new age technologies which can be used to leverage India's traditional medicine knowledge to suit the needs of today's consumers? For example, tell us how advanced seed technologies are stimulating the farm to formulation journey, especially for bioactives from natural products. I believe this is also benefiting farmers. If you can give an example from your experience.
I think that's a very good point. One is that good seeds can make a big difference to the yields and the actives that are present in botanicals. Botanicals are a large portion of India's offerings today in the nutraceutical space, and a lot of nutraceuticals today are botanicals dependent. So having a good farm to formulations process into place can make a significant impact on the way we can offer India's leverage to the world. Second point is in India there have been a lot of traditional medical knowledge and medicinal plants, some of which are Ayurvedic dependent, some of which are Unani dependent, and I think are used in those spaces, homeopathy spaces. I think we can leverage quite a bit of those by developing the science that nutraceuticals demand with the traditional medical knowledge, and then isolate and purify these products and make them available. But what we will need is a very effective plantation or planting program, which requires generation of newer plants or many more plants or many more acres of land. Otherwise, we'll be just destroying our forests and not necessarily replenishing them effectively. So having a plantation-driven approach to making medicinal plants available is going to be a very, very interesting need and a requirement in this space. This is actually one of the things we've been talking to the government about, and we are trying to get their attention focused on this, but it's taking us a long time to get there.
One part is the formulation process, and the other part is, building up ethical nutraceutical brands? Once you have a product, how do you take it ethically into the market? So any success mantras of building ethical nutraceutical brands which are compliant with all relevant regulations? Any examples from your own company's products?
So yes, there are quite a few examples. The way one has to approach this is by creating differentiated products first of all. So we need to create products that are scientifically evidenced, that are proven clinically and are known to work. Okay, because you don't want to take products that don't, there are only literature specific. They have to be demonstrated to work in a human system, and it's important to do that using the right technologies in delivery as well. Which is, if you deliver a product, it has to be stable. It has to have 2 to 3 years shelf life. They have to work within the human system appropriately. If it has to release in the intestine, it should release in the intestine and not necessarily in the stomach, so that the efficacy is most well absorbed in the human body. I think these are the science that we need to bring to play and use effectively in our offerings. India has a huge pharma industry, so we can borrow quite a bit of technologies from there and apply it to the nutraceutical space, and that's where I think India stands a very strong opportunity to do that. We've done quite a bit of that, and that's how we have grown. That's essentially the model we have picked. What we've also done is we've branded our ingredients, so we don't sell it as a commodity. We sell it as a specialty, and the way we brand it is like the Intel Inside strategy, which is the brands internationally that use our ingredients put our logos on their packs with that this is the active principle inside this formulation, and actives form the major part of their formulation. So it's easy to do the Intel Inside approach, and I think that has worked very well.
Okay, so that's clearly a very pharma-specific strategy which has been applied to the nutra sector. So are we also, kind of looking at what regulations worked in the pharma sector and then trying adopting them for the nutra sector as well? I'm speaking specifically about the PLI scheme, which has got mixed success in the pharma industry. But are you looking, what are your suggestions to the Government of India's proposal for a PLI?
At this point, there is no government scheme right now. We have
Right.
asked for it, we have requested for it, but we are still struggling with the government wanting to understand why we need a PLI for this nutraceutical sector. So we're still advocating that position. If it comes through, it will be good, but if it doesn't come through, we are still going to continue to grow. I believe having a PLI will help the growth be faster. And if it's linked to certain offtakes of specific products, those are the ways the government is keen on implementing, and we'll find ways to implement those.
Right. What are other policy measures required to position India as a global nutraceutical hub? For instance, on the taxation front, etc., any policy recommendations to the government?
See, normally it's not in our. We have not been the kind of organization that is asked, as an association that is asked for concessions. But I think because we can do this business without having any government concessions. What we need is for the government to support us where it's necessary, which is having legislation that works, that supports the industry, not having legislation that taxes indirectly or directly the industry. The Biodiversity Act is one such regulation which is coming in the way of the industry, and it's creating a lot of roadblocks for us. So I think this is a challenge. It's a matter of interpretation of the Biodiversity Act, which is a challenge. And I think what we are trying to do is to get the government to interpret it in an appropriate way that facilitates the industry to grow rather than affects the industry from not growing.
Right. And what about other concerns made on the security and sustainability of the nutraceutical value chain, especially when you're dealing with natural bioactive ingredients? There are rising concerns of safety and efficacy due to less stringent regulations.
Yeah.
Any recommendations to the government on that, to the industry, to your peer players as well?
See, I think we can do it in two ways. One of the ways we can do this is as a nation is we police it. Okay, but how much can you police is the question that I ask. I think what's important is to evangelize this, which is to really talk to the industry, to say the industry has to step forward and take responsibility for responsible nutrition. Okay, and I think that's an important way to approach this. It's there is always going to be the 80-20 rule, which is there is going to be 80% of the people that are honest and straightforward, and 20% will do what they have think there is right for them to do. But you can't police them all. It's impossible to police everybody, because when you start policing for those 20%, it's the 80% that actually get hurt in the whole process. So realistically, would be my recommendation, that one should look at evangelizing this and making it a message that yes, you can always give gradings to companies through some sort of a rating processes, that you have 5-star companies, 4-star companies, 3-star companies, so that the buyers can also differentiate and understand whom they are working with. And such processes are easy to implement and not difficult at all.
Right. So the pharma industry has gone the generic way, and it's also gone very commoditized in that sense. What kind of support do nutraceutical players require to invest in nutra formulation research so that you get that edge and you don't get branded and commoditized somewhere down the line? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think that's really where differentiation comes in. That what should be done is that each company needs to look at their own product portfolio in a manner that how can we differentiate ourselves from the others. See, once you have one product in the market, nobody wants the same product cheaper. They just want a different product because they want to create their own positioning also differently. And I think what is necessary is to do research in science on actives that are present in various products. The actives come from botanicals, so which means you want to look at various botanical. Let's take we are addressing a particular consumer segment or a health benefit segment. The idea should be to look at 5 products that can be made available in that health benefit segment, okay, differentiated from each other, so that the consumers can then pick and choose which one they really want to buy and use, rather than have 5 of the same products going out there from 5 different companies. That's what we need to encourage as research in India. That requires a little time, it requires a little work. Products take 2 to 3 years to fructify into meaningful products with clinical studies supporting. And I think clinically these need to be studied and then put in motion to be sold.
What are the international markets that India's nutraceutical market is looking at or should look at? The interesting geographical areas.
Certainly US is the biggest. Of course, we should look at US. I think Asia is growing very well, which is parts of Asia like Japan, Korea, Taiwan, China, even the Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore are growing well. So those are interesting opportunities, some of which will be B2B opportunities and some of which will be B2C opportunities. I believe B2B opportunities also exist in the Middle East, Saudi. These regions, UAE and Saudi, could also be very interesting opportunity areas. And of course, Latin America would be another very interesting opportunity.
Okay. We talked about international markets. What categories of health do you see growth in the next 5 years, and where does nutraceutical fit in to meet these growth trends?
So 2 or 3 areas are likely to grow, I think, in the future. One is clearly women's health issues are getting a lot of attention and traction. Brain and mood health is a second big area, which is the issues that affect mood and mental makeup. Sleep is a third big area, which is very interesting. I believe parallelly also there are interesting areas in joint health and also in sports nutrition. There is also a very interesting vitamins and minerals area, which is important. So I think we should look at these 5 or 6 major categories which India should focus on and build products there.
Okay. Circling back to our first question, if you want to repeat a little bit of your point so that it's also a little bit of a key takeaways. What is your take on how India can transform into a $100 billion nutraceutical industry by 2030?
I think India really needs to set its focus right in terms of deciding how the government and industry are going to partner in this process. The government needs to play a little more of an active role in supporting the industry rather than controlling it in any fashion. And I believe that the government needs to understand this industry a little better, for which they will need to open up their minds and talk to us and I think listen to what we have to say. we are struggling with that a little bit, and if you can help us reach them, that will be the best way to get there and get them to understand the fact that they need to do a little more work in understanding this. There is policy intervention necessary that can help this industry do a better job. But there is opportunities in export, there are opportunities in imports, and there are opportunities in the domestic formulations market. All three can be explored very well. To reach 100 billion is not an impossible target. It's a stretch, but it's not impossible.
Okay. On that very positive note, thank you, Mr. Mariwala, for your time today, and all the best in this nutraceutical journey, both of OmniActive as well as of India. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Viveka. Thank you.